Any given religion that you can cite is based in something that we have read. Okay? Who wrote it? A man or a woman, or whoever.
Or it was orally passed down.
Or it was orally passed down. Now, let me talk about this whole orally passed down thing. Because, and remember, we're not talking about the other kind of oral here, okay? That's a whole different thing. So, no, we'll never know which way the wind blows in Australia. Oral tradition. How many of you are going to be able to go out next week and tell the story of Merv and Fred on the hill exactly as I just told it to you? Can anybody tell it exactly as I just told it? No, not a one of you. He will, because he's got a record of it, you see. But as an oral tradition, as a non-recorded tradition, as something where you go and pass down my word as law, as this is what happened, because it came from the great Merv. Merv says this is how it happened. Okay, well, when you tell the story, you're not going to get it right. You're going to get it close. You're going to get it damn close because you heard it from Merv. But then, when you go tell Janice, Janice is going to go tell, Cletus over here, and she's going to get it a little more wrong. And here it goes, and it gets changed, and it gets changed, and a word that I used is going to be pulled out and replaced with another word because it didn't make sense to them, or they're not going to have the right inflection, or they're going to leave out this piece, or they're going to add this piece, or it's going to turn from well, what Merv said was, well, you know what I heard, or I was at, and it's going to just snowball from there because that's what we do. We are not tape recorders. We interpret. Children are tape recorders. Just cuss around them and then you'll know. But at about age 7, we lose that ability. Okay, and we no longer record. We just interpret what we hear and put it in terms that we can fathom and that we can explain to others. So then what do? We think, well, this story about these 18 guys sitting up here on the hill with the John boat and the PT boat and the beer and the scotch, see how it changed? It's so good that I have to write it down. So I'm going to write it down. Well, look at the root of Christianity as far as a religion goes, okay? And like I said, I'm not just picking on Christianity, I'm picking on all of them. Look at the root of Christianity or any other oral tradition that then became a written tradition. It all started, and every damn one of us will claim that we can trace our religion back further than the other guy. I hear it everywhere I go. We wouldn't have shirts running around saying it's the old religion if we didn't believe we could trace it back further than the other guys. We all do. We can trace our religion back further than here. Now, we were here first. It's how it is. They're saying the same thing that we are. Okay? These people over here are saying the same thing we are. We've got proof. We've got proof. We've got proof. You go back and you look, and it was all written down before there were things like laser printers and printing presses, even the Gutenberg press. It was written down by people who couldn't always spell and couldn't always conjugate a verb and couldn't form a coherent sentence. And then it was passed on to someone else who said, well, everybody in this town needs a copy of this, so we need to get all these monks in a room and feed them mead and make them write. And so what they did is they got all of these scribes in a room, and as they were writing, making their copy, they would say, truculent? I don't know what that means. I'm going to say Fred. They change a word here or there. Or you know what? I heard from so-and-so that this was how it really happened, and they make a little margin note. Next thing you know, the next guy is copying it says, well, I'm going to take the margin note, I'm going to put it in here. And it becomes part of the story. And the story grows and the story changes. And what was originally a story about two guys with a John boat that was made up on the spur of the moment by an idiot in an aluminum foil hat as an illustration has become law. And it has changed to an ocean liner with all of the animals in the world and all of the booze in the world and 72 virgins. Okay? Because somebody felt like adding this, or I heard this, or whatever, and it has become law. And then what happened was we had people who would say, you know what? I don't like that. Yes, exactly. I don't think I like that. I think I like it this way, so since I'm the king, I'm going to change it. Or you get somebody who says, you know what? I really don't like this word in this book by this Mark Twain guy, so I'm going to change it. And that's how we're going to print it now. Or whatever they have decided to do, their interpretation. Do you know how many different versions of the Bible there are? Just as many versions of a Wiccan Bible as there are. Just as many versions of any religion there is. Because what happens is it gets taken and interpreted, and a fictional story that was told to make somebody go to sleep or to make somebody stop misbehaving or just as a joke at Noah's bar has now turned into this growing little ditty that we all have to believe and obey and take as religion because Merv said so, or God said so, or Vishnu said so. Okay? Think about the pagan concept here. When somebody says, I am pagan, we have already established that it really means the absence of a religion. Okay? This does not mean that you don't have one. It means if you just say you're a pagan, I'm claiming the absence of a religion, but my religion over here is aluminum foil hat.
There you go. That's a big kiss.
Okay, that's a big kiss?
Yes.
I'm a big kiss. Okay, rock on. Your religion that you choose under the pagan umbrella, which is totally different thing, can be what? Be Wicca. Well, if you say that you're Wiccan, what kind of Wiccan are you? How many versions of Wicca are there?
872.
872. Did they get rid of a few?
Yes.
Okay.
They lost interest.
I mean, tell me, how many versions of Wicca are there? How, because
As many as there are Wiccans.
as many as there are Wiccans. You know why? And I have proof of this, and what I'm about to say is law here, okay? Because I'm the great Merv. I wrote a book. There you go. I wrote a book. You have to believe everything I say. Okay? Because I wrote it down. There you go. Therefore, there should be a Rowan Gant religion because I created it. There it is. That's the one true religion. Correct? I wrote it down. That made it real. Correct? Uh-huh. Yes, sir.
What if your religion, so-called, can be confirmed by your own mystical experiences rather than something that's written down?
Okay,
Like
let's
the law
talk.
of the Lamb.
Let's talk about that. Your religion can be confirmed by your own mystical experiences for whom?
Aleister Crowley.
No, for whom?
Me. Yeah.
For you.
Right.
You can confirm your religion by your own mystical experiences.
Right.
Okay? That's great. I am happy for you. And you know why? Because faith is a very personal thing. Just as we just said a moment ago, there are many forms of Wicca as there are Wiccans. Everybody has a religion, whether they claim one or not. And if you have had a spiritual experience, or what you perceive to be a spiritual experience that confirms it for you, you are one of the lucky ones. And that is a wonderful thing, religion, or that it exists at all, or that it's not fiction, because I didn't have the experience you did.
Right.
You can tell me the experience.
I've lived by what Crowley calls the true will before, where I didn't have to make any decisions in my higher mind. Just sometimes I'd be driving a car and be like, where am I going? It's like, don't worry, when you get there, you'll find out.
Okay.
And I basically, you never had a bad day. You say, oh, this broke. I'm just fix it, man. You don't get bummed out.
Okay.
You're purely in touch with your higher mind.
I understand what you're saying, but let me tell you a story here. There's something called instinct. Okay? And that instinct, some people define as that higher mind, or as their lower gut, or their, puckering sphincter, or whatever. But instinct, at some point, drives you. Okay? You act on instinct. You follow that instinct. You drive along, and it's like, I don't know where I'm going, but I'll get there. Okay? Every time that works out for you, which it might be working out for you for years without a single problem, every time that works out for you, hey, that instinct's good shit right there. It's driving me. But the day that instinct brings you across the path of a dump truck and you end up in the hospital, was the instinct right? Or was that where you were meant to be?
Sure, you went to the hospital to learn some lesson and you taught.
Okay, so then, and I'm not doubting your religion, but now what we're doing is we're saying that we are predestined, preordained to be XYZ, that my life, from the moment I came screaming into the world with my oblong head, because I in fact did have an oblong head when I was born, which is why I'm like I am now. Really, my grandmother believed I had water on her brain. Remember, I was born a long time ago. I was there in the birth canal for a long time. They didn't know what to do except for stick the plunger on my head and yank me out. That's all how they did it back then. So think about that. From the moment I was born, I was destined to be here making shit up for you, if I follow that particular logic, right?
Well, the concept is you just follow there is no will. There's no law to do what thou wilt, but follow your true will.
Mm-hmm.
You can't, it's like I say, you can fall in and out of the state of enlightenment. You have to work at it. I mean, it doesn't last forever. So, you know what I'm saying?
No, I do know I understand. I hear you.
You might go 20 years before you ever reach the point of getting in touch with your higher mind or your guardian angel.
Mm-hmm. Does anybody know what Jainism is? And I'm not talking about the hero of Canton, okay? We do have some Firefly fans out there. Does anybody know what Jainism is? Okay, well, everybody know or think they know what Hinduism is. Okay? As I've given to understand from my reading and from my talks with some people, because I am actually a member in St. Louis of something called the St. Louis Ethical Society. Is everybody familiar with the Ethical Society? Okay, the Ethical Society is like a church, but it's where ethical humanists come together, and all faiths are represented. It's kind of like a Unitarian church in a sense. Okay, all faiths are represented and welcome, and we the whole idea is being ethical, being a humanist. Okay, but what we do is we do some religious education. So I have given talks there on Wicca and on witchcraft, which is not technically a religion, but on witchcraft, and I've talked about this and I've talked about that. And I've made shit up for them too. Okay. They have brought in other people, and I have sat and talked to these other, priests and monks and all this kind of good stuff. And there's this wonderful little deal called Jainism. Okay. Jainism is a part of the Hindu culture. Hinduism is not technically its own religion. It's an umbrella culture, and there are many different religions underneath it that follow very similar paths, but each one has a little different spin depending on what area of the country you came from, what little village, and what particular, god they created and such, or who their prophet was, or, and so on and so forth. So within Jainism, they have this concept of this whole higher self preordained. You follow this, you just do what you have to do as you go through life, and you will get to the other side, and you will eventually become enlightened. However, their primary law is one that most people in this room should be very familiar with, and it is harm none. Okay? However, these people take harm none all the way out as far as it will go. Their belief is that simply by living, they are causing harm by breathing in and out. They've killed some bacteria. They've walked through, oh, I probably killed some microscopic bug by walking across this floor. Therefore, I have caused harm on this planet. Therefore, I will never gain true enlightenment. Okay? Now, I sat and listened to this guy, and we discussed karma and their concept of karma. Karma in the West is not the same as it is in the East, in case you aren't aware. It's a completely different thing. But we discussed this, and I looked at him and I said, so what you're telling me is that if a guy breaks out of prison, and he's some rabid murderer rapist dude, and he drives down the street and says, that looks like a good house, and comes and kicks down my door, walks through and says, I'm going to rape your wife and daughter and then kill them, and then I'm coming to get you, that I'm supposed to stand there and let it happen? He said, yes, you are. I said, why is that? He says, because it has been preordained and you have a lesson to learn from that. And I said, I got news for you. I said, I am going to pull out a Glock 17 and I'm going to put an entire magazine dead center mass on this son of a bitch before he ever hits the ground. Trust me, and I can do it. He says, well, then you'll never reach enlightenment. I said, so I'm not going to reach enlightenment because I allowed a crazed killer to rape and murder my wife and daughter. That's true. And I said, well, then I'm not really cool with your religion.
But at that point, you weren't reaching enlightenment anyway.
No. Might as well kill him because I'm not reaching enlightenment anyway. So that was the circle jerk that I got in with this guy. So he starts telling me this story. He says, well, let me tell you one of our stories. This happened. And I said, it did? You're not just bullshitting me, you were there. This happened. Well, it was several hundred years ago. Okay, so who was there that saw this? Well, this happened. Trust me, it happened.